All righty. Well, thank you everyone for coming today to our monthly webinar series. Today we're going to be talking with, we know we do this occasionally where we bring on some industry professionals to kind of lend some color to the conversation. And today we're going to be talking with two very seasoned professionals in the space, Aaron Langston and Kate Redmond. And looking forward to chatting with these two. Before we do, just I'm Joe Dallas. I'm the Chief Business Officer over here at TradePending, and we'll be kind of moderating and showing off some of our products today. Um, Obviously, I'm the only one with a fancy headshot. Kate and Aaron will work on that for you guys. But just some housekeeping items. We will be recording this. If for some reason you have to drop off, that recording will be available. And you'll notice that you're muted, but that's not because we don't want to hear from you. Just to kind of respect the quality audio of the presentation here. If you have a question, just drop it into the Q&A section of your Zoom window. So today's topics: best practices for trade-in leads, how to handle them, what to do with them, and then inventory merchandising, something that is might be kind of overlooked right now in the marketplace that we're in. And then we're going to see the two products that Aaron and Kate have used, are using, recommend, etc. So first of all, let's introduce Kate Redmond. Kate, we've known each other for a long time. Right now, you're the marketing director at Hunter Automotive Group up there in beautiful Asheville, North Carolina. But tell us a little bit about yourself, Kate, and your background. I think I got to unmute you, Kate. Hold on. You there, Kate?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are.
Sorry.
That's all right.
So my name is Kate Redmond. I grew up just outside of Cleveland, Ohio. And then for the last, I don't know, almost 20 years now, I've been in the South. I've previously, I was with an automotive ad agency for 10 years, and I've been aboard at Hunter directly for the last two. So I essentially grew up in automotive advertising on the digital side, and now have left the agency side of things to be in-house for the Hunter Automotive Group based in Asheville.
What's the difference in your view between being agency side versus kind of in the dealership?
I really thought it might be easier coming to the dealer side because I was like, oh, I have all these clients on the ad side, and now it's just the group and the stores that we have. But it's a lot different in the sense that I'm more a part of things than I never imagined I'd be a part of. One of the fortunate things I was a part of is we just built 3 new stores, and so moving those stores and merchandising those stores and the lots and the showrooms and the service drives definitely falls under marketing, but never thought something I would be able to do. And it's just been really exciting to be part of.
That's super cool. Yeah, that group's growing, and you guys seem to be crushing it in the market. So good job so far. I know one of the things that we talked about, even like back in January at NADA or February, it was kind of this rebuild of the BDC process. Tell us like what kind of kicked that off and what you're changing.
So I had set some goals for myself moving into 2020 back in fourth quarter of last year to say, okay, now that, I at that point was only aboard a year and kind of wrap my head around everything and optimize everything. I was like, okay, now it's time to move into digital retailing and kind of pushing the boundaries of where we were. And so my goal for this year was to find a partner that worked with all of our OEMs, which is a little trickier than you would think to find, and then implementing the process, the team, and getting that going. And so COVID, obviously, with everybody, messed us all up, but it forced our hand with digital retailing and just made us figure it out. And so we've been reworking. We have a traditional BDC that appointment sets, and then it's an in-person with salespeople. And so we've been reworking the BDC and how they process leads based off those digital retailing and the changes that have happened due to COVID. So we've got a lot of different trial and errors that have been happening over the last 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, one of the things I think that we talked about in our pre-planning was how you've kind of done away with sort of these like templated automated follow-ups. You guys are more about getting on the phone and kind of getting in the head of the consumer, right?
Yeah, phones first for us. It is probably with a lot of stores. We really wait to do the email, but primarily focused phone first and starting a conversation to start building that relationship right away.
It's awesome. How many BDC agents do you have there at the group?
On the sales side, I believe we're up to 7 now.
Cool. It's no small task to completely rebuild that kind of that structure to make it successful. So good on you. And we have heard that from other people. The swapping, the need for efficient DR solutions has really, like you said, forced the hand to like we're either going to figure it out or not be in business, right? Um, Yeah, so let's talk about the merchandising of new and used cars online. I know that you were the first time you saw superlatives, your eyes were just kind of wide open at what we were doing. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of that in the marketplace today?
Yeah, so the used car manager was pretty much handling all the comments on the inventory, and then auditing the photos. But one of the things that we noticed, I mean, one of our points is a Subaru store, and so it gets a lot of attention on its own. But from a merchandising of the used cars and being able to differentiate ourselves a little bit differently, we looked at superlatives as a way to really kind of point out the uniques without having to put in a lot of manual time and effort. The used car director obviously handling the move and everything for us coming up to the other facility. There's so much on his plate, and so I was trying to find a solution, because our conversion on our used cars had slipped a little bit on our website itself. Third parties, we only have two, so we continued to have great success there. It was just on our website conversion dropped off, and so we looked at superlatives as a way to really drive up engagement, and get more traction on our website, since we spend, most of our advertising goes directly to that.
Gotcha. And then are you doing any training on the floor or with your BDC agents on building the value through superlatives when they're talking to them, or is that something you guys have tackled yet?
We haven't tackled it yet, but it's definitely on the planning and implementation side. First and foremost was the BDC, so that they could talk to it when the leads came in. It kind of helped load their lips a little bit more.
Hmm.
And we're working to set up the training with our sales team, as well as our sales management team. We just moved not even 60 days ago, so we're
Yeah,
still
yeah.
working through some processes, and we went from one building to four, so now it's a little crazy, but we're working to get that set up by the end of October, so everything is seamless and running.
Awesome. Well, I think, lastly, when you were at the agency side, you were a fan, and now you're at an actual auto group. And so what is it about our tool set that's so attractive? Why are you still with us?
Yeah, so I came across TradePending years ago, on the ad side, and just genuinely like the product. The first and foremost thing that always stuck out to me was the integration into the website, where it was just a thin bar, where it wasn't a bulky pop-up or just antiquated look and feel. So that was the first thing that caught my eye. And that's why I started talking with y'all to see, how it worked, how it converted. And I had a lot of stores at that time testing it. And so when I came aboard at Hunter, I had done an evaluation of all of the trade tools that they had used in the past, track their conversion rates, and then also track the gross based off of those deals. And then when I compared all of that, and we decided to try TradePending to see if we could, push the needle with those results, we were able to see that fairly quickly. And so that's why we started, but that's also why we've stayed with it, is our conversion rate has been the best out of any of the trade tools that I tracked in the last 5 years for Hunter.
Awesome. And for everybody listening, if you aren't tracking your ROI from lead to gross, then you aren't seeing the full picture. That it's such a valuable metric to extrapolate it all the way out, instead of just looking at like increase in leads, right?
Yeah.
Well, cool. Kate, thank you so much for jumping on. We'll have maybe another question or two for you, but we're gonna jump over to uh, Aaron Langston, president of Lighthouse Web Management. Are you still with us there, Aaron?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you clear as a bell. So, kind of same thing here, Aaron. We've been working together for years now. You were kind of an early adopter slash fan of TradePending. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, what Lighthouse Website Management is.
So I started my career in the automotive industry about 16 years ago, working directly in a BDC as a business development representative, and worked my way up to running a BDC at a Toyota store down in Florida, and then ended up moving back to North Carolina, where I worked in a store local to me for a few years, and had to pack up and move, and I took my job with me on the road, which sort of evolved into what I do now, which is working hand in hand with dealerships all over the Southeast, helping their business development centers, track their information, make educated decisions based on data, and getting more into the digital marketing side of things. I came across TradePending early on and was able to convince one of my stores. I said, hey, let's give this a try. Let's see what it's all about. And in all the recommendations I make to my clients, I'm very transparent with them and appreciate the transparency in reporting with third-party services. And the reporting that you guys have set up makes it easy to explain why it's such a great product and why it works and how it's very cost-effective for dealerships.
Awesome. That's a really good summary. So, in this kind of consultative approach that you have with your dealers, specifically to like merchandising, placements, best practices on websites, what's kind of your thoughts on, how to prioritize those things?
So, especially in today's time, mobile first for everything. So when I'm looking at a dealer site, maybe like a new client, we'll go through everything on desktop and mobile and look to see what's showing up where, does it make sense? Do we have any data to back it up or to support making a change? But everything is, definitely mobile centric. And so the way you guys have designed the tool where it scales, for different screen sizes, makes it very easy transition for customers to be able to use it and it feel very seamless on the website. A lot of the other trade tools that I worked with prior to you guys were not designed that way. They were a little bit clunky, or they just didn't work quite right on mobile. And so I think you guys putting all that focus on the mobile side of things in the beginning is what made it work so well.
Yeah, I mean, today, the traffic dispersion between mobile and desktops, has gone in the past couple of years from being like 50-50 to now like maybe 65% mobile. But even then, over 70% of our leads are coming off of mobile devices. So we've definitely seen that trend increase over the last 3 years for sure. What about what role do you see, deep linking and UTM tracking codes being done correctly, like campaign wise, Aaron?
When it's set up properly, it works fantastic. We even during this pandemic, we've seen stores change their marketing messages to focus more on acquiring trade-ins and growing their used inventory. And sorry, my dog is trying to lay on my feet. So when it's set up properly and you have the ability to track it, it really adds the value, to the work that the digital companies are doing for my dealers, and lets them know that it's effective or not, and we can adjust it. A lot of the third parties that they use in addition to trade really work better when they're using ones that use your product within their tool, like the Gubagoos and Auto APRs of the world. So we've been able to sort of leverage the strongest points of all those assets together to really maximize those campaigns.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's a really good seg, because the other thing we were going to talk about is partnerships. I know that you're a big believer in our APIs is now used with dozens of other business units, chats, DR tools, et cetera. What's kind of your view on the continuity there and usage across those platforms?
Well, I think the consistency in the trade numbers that the customer sees is what makes it work so well. They're not getting numbers that are, thousands of dollars apart. They're all using that same formula to determine that value. And so I think that's what helps to increase those closing rates when I look at not just the way the tool functions and performs on the site, but when you get the lead into the BDC and how they're able to work those leads. I find that they have a much higher conversion rate for shown appointments as well as sold appointments.
Awesome. So, as a consultant, you get to see a lot of data across a lot of, different tools and different dealerships. Where do you see TradePending kind of landing in the arena of value, ROI, attribution, all of those things?
For all the stores that I have working with you guys currently and in the past, the tool is typically the number one or number two tool in terms of cost per lead and cost per sale, and typically in the top three in terms of lead volume itself. So, it makes it a very easy argument for why they should use the service, because when you break it down by, the cost per lead and the cost per sale, it's very low in comparison to some of the other tools that they might be looking at or considering.
Awesome. Well, let's look at the tools now. And Aaron and Kate, you guys stick around because we're gonna ask you another question for the end of the webinar. But just to kind of jump into Snap being our primary tool in kind of the first thing that hit the market a few years ago. How did this happen? And this slide's really kind of the genesis of our business, which we did this consumer survey, and we do this every year, and some things have shifted around, but over the last 6 years, it's remained pretty much the same, which, the number one reason people come to visit your dealership is because they want to research new and used inventory. The number two reason is to value their trade. They have questions about the value of their trade. And we know that historically, before we came on the market, this was a really underutilized or under-monetized traffic reason that dealers were capitalizing on. So we kind of found this, dusty little corner of the industry. And to kind of speak to what Aaron was just saying, typically we're in the top three lead sources when it comes to, the lead totals for dealerships, just in the organic traffic that was there with the intent of valuing their trade. Before we saw, kind of an antiquated UI. This was also kind of referred to over the last few minutes, kind of hard to use, difficult to navigate, mobile. So there were a lot of people kind of coming to the website and then ultimately not converting. So the first thing we wanted to do was kind of address those people on the site. And then secondly, and maybe even more importantly, is historically, there's just been kind of a real chasm between consumer and dealer, where you have consumers today that feel very entitled and empowered to do research on any purchase decision. They have this desire for information. And then you have dealers that have a tremendous amount of experience. They know what's going on in the marketplace. They know what's going on in their inventory with the car that they're looking out from their desk on their front line. And historically, there hasn't been a really good bridge between these two parties. So it kind of creates this tenuous relationship from the get-go. And especially regards to trade values, 5 years ago when Snap really started getting going, everything that was consumer facing was, pretty much book value related. And that's during a time where dealers were almost solely starting to use market data to price, to source, to do all of those things. And so now you kind of have that disconnect. You have these two parties working off of essentially a different data set. So the first thing we want to do is solve this UI issue to help convert more of those people on your site. And then secondarily, we just want to put the dealer and the consumer on the same page. We wanted to bridge that chasm between dealer and consumer. So let's take a look at the tool. We're not going to PowerPoint everybody to death here, But we're going to go over to Wilsonville Toyota, which is my local Toyota store. A good friend of mine, Paul Schnell, runs the marketing for the group there. And this is our trade tool. You know, if you think back to what trade tools looked like 10 years ago, it's very different. There's no drop downs. There's no difficulty in usage. But, really simple predictive text type ahead. We didn't invent type ahead, but we, certainly are the first ones to use it in a trade tool on a dealer site. So very simple. I'm going to type in my Camry, and vehicle selection being a huge part of the process, 4-5 seconds, ask for some really basic information. And, within 10 seconds, I've given the consumer what they came there to get, which is a trade value range on their vehicle. And of course, in a demo scenario, this is going to take a lot longer than it normally does. I don't know, maybe my child's streaming Netflix somewhere else right now, but let's rerun that real quick. So again, just a really simple kind of web form. We're not asking a whole lot of the consumer. We're not asking for, you'll notice we're not asking for condition. We're not even really forcing a mileage. We're flagging the consumer here to do that. And as a consumer, as I interact with this report, my value and my placement in the market updates dynamically. So question always is, well, what does all this mean and where do you get it? Well, if you look at value, it's always kind of been defined as supply and demand. How many of them are there? How fast are they moving? And so what we're doing is starting in the zip code of the dealership and just working out in increments of 25 miles until we find at least 30 comparable vehicles in the marketplace. So every one of these dots here is a vehicle for sale or recently sold in the market. And that's how we kind of build this trend line or this idea of what the marketplace is for the vehicle. And then this is sort of the dealer, centric part of it is, we're displaying, say, okay, here's the list price range, and here's everything I have to do as a dealer in order to remarket that vehicle. So based on, the marketplace, this is about where you should be in terms of trade values, assuming there's no outlying issues with your vehicle. So you'll notice all of these, kind of line items here, reconditioning being a huge one. This is a potentially CPO-able product on a Toyota site. And then you got to take into consider all these other kind of overhead expenses. Well, the beauty of all this for the dealer is that all of this is customizable and intelligent. So let's say I was trying to trade in a 6 Series BMW. I would see a much larger Highline reconditioning figure. At the same time, the CPO fee would drop off because you can't certify a BMW at a Toyota dealership. And even the way the range is displayed can be customized. And you'll notice certain dots kind of fall outside of this trend line. Well, by default, our range displays -8% to +2% of whatever the average of this data set, which is kind of a mouthful. But simply put, if you say our average of these dots was $10,000, that means your range would be 9.2 to 10.2. So you might say, hey, I would need to go a little bit lower. We could go -10 to +2, and then it would be 9,000 to 10.2. So all that to say that there's a tremendous amount of flexibility in here, but ultimately puts you in the driver's seat that if you have some kind of goal or business strategy, that we can turn the knobs to certainly adjust to whatever you want to accomplish. And, obviously being an ROI tool, we are, measured on our productivity as far as lead production goes. So for the month of September so far for Wilsonville Toyota, we have done a pretty stellar job. Of the 30,000 unique visitors or so, we've sent in 210 trade opportunities. And so, two things I'm looking at here, one being, mobile conversion, which frankly is a little bit lower than we see across our entire dealer base, but also just the form completion. 25% of the people on mobile that saw that form who started the process completed the whole thing. So kind of getting back to finding and converting, this is a huge factor. So, obviously, we're in the conversion space with Snap Tool. We're trying to fuel more opportunity for your inventory as a dealer. And then the question kind of becomes, okay, so you've got more opportunity, you've got more vehicles. So what are you doing today in your used inventory to merchandise those vehicles? What are you doing to differentiate yourself from the dealership next door? And this is where superlatives comes in, because we know that, you go to a dealer site and almost every website has a BDP, an SRP, a homepage. You get a vehicle, you see, the color, how much it is, and what you see is a lot of what's the car, what's the mileage, what's the price. There's really no why. And that's kind of the big reveal here. It's some superlatives. Why is this vehicle priced how it is? Well, it's a quick seller. It's usually only on the lot for 7 days. And, additionally, it's priced really well within the marketplace. It's a very popular trim within the marketplace. So instead of just a bunch of superlatives really frames up the unique selling proposition, what is most unique about this vehicle, and hopefully kind of provides, like Kate mentioned earlier, kind of loads the lips of the BDC as well. It's so that when someone calls and says, hey, what's the best price you can give me on this Corolla, you can say, hey, Mr. Consumer, this Corolla has 8,000 miles less than anything else, any other 2018 Corolla SE within a 200-mile radius. It's also not an easy color to find. And because of, how great of a car it is, there's even maybe some remaining warranty that we can talk about. So I think you're in a really good position. If you want to come in and test drive this, you're not going to be wasting your time. So the one thing we haven't talked about there is what? Price. We're building value in that vehicle. And even when we do talk about price, it's still contextual, right? We're still saying, it's not a national thumbs up, thumbs down. It's saying, hey, this is $1,800 cheaper than anything within a 300-mile radius. So, my question to you is, why, Mr. Consumer, is why would you go anywhere else? So superlatives really, is the answer. And to Kate's point earlier, kind of a really low lift. Really, doesn't require a lot of maintenance. By default, 96% of all vehicles have an assigned superlative, and it really, one, communicates some of that market knowledge and that intel that dealers have today. Your used car manager already knows that this car is going to sell really quick, that it's in demand. And we're just helping to bridge that communication gap between dealer and consumer, and in a dynamic merchandising way. So that's superlatives. That's our two main products that Aaron and Kate were kind of talking about in context of their businesses today. And just to kind of bring it all back together, maybe we could, Aaron, are you guys still on? Aaron, Kate,
Yep.
you guys still on?
I'm here.
Awesome. So kind of just a couple of closing questions here for you. What for Kate, how have you changed in the last 6 months or so your ad spend, marketing efforts? What's kind of changed in the pandemic era?
So the biggest changes that we made were starting March when COVID hit Western North Carolina. It was like mid-March. It was right after St. Patrick's Day. We pivoted to a free pickup and delivery for service, and we switched all of our TV, all of our messaging quickly, like within a day or two, just to keep cars coming in and revenue, moving forward. And we were the only store in our area to pivot to service, where everybody else went to more of a buy a car online message. So that really helped us in that regard. And then also we cut back most of our advertising. A lot of the vendors did work with us to give us reduced rates, but we were able to cut our ad spend back by 50% across all of our stores, which helped with profitability. And then from there, we just kind of started to dial it back up. First, digitally, we used to do a lot of TV and radio. Now that's very more sporadic and a lot more intentional than just, oh, hey, what's our TV spot? When are we going to run? That kind of stuff. And then for our brands that don't necessarily have the highest volume, we switched to an OTT, which is streaming services for TV. And so we we're able to get almost a full month's worth of media for half the cost of what a news buy would look like in this market. And this market's actually fairly cheap to buy because it's really just one station that owns the Asheville news. Everybody else is out of Greenville, Spartanburg, and South Carolina. So our biggest thing was switching to OTT and then maximizing all of the digital products that we had, because the cost and return that we saw on those were that much higher.
Awesome. That's really, really insightful. So you're down with OTT.
I love OTT. The amount of digital targeting that you can do on OTT absolutely blows my mind. And so we've been able, for our Volvo store, target luxury auto intenders with a specific household income within a specific radius. And then, for our Hyundai store, we were able to change the age range and a couple, so the targeting that we were able to do has really seen a lift, and we physically see it in our walk-in traffic within 3 days of being on air. So it's pretty crazy.
That's awesome. So Aaron, 2 questions for you. What first, how have you seen your business kind of change over the last 6 months, and what's kind of been the most fluid thing for you in the pandemic era?
Definitely making sure that all of my dealers' websites have messaging, related to whatever the current situation is, front and center, so it's easy for people to understand how, the procedures at the dealership are working, what at-home services they have available, what can they do online. So a lot of what Kate said applies to all the stores I work with, and, sort of initially shifting our message over to service, and making sure customers knew that they had the ability to shop from home, remotely, or, to have vehicles brought to them at where they're located. But, now that we're kind of past that initial phase of the pandemic, we're seeing a lot more of that digital retailing and making sure that the vehicles on the website are merchandised, because inventory is still an issue for a lot of my stores, both on the new and the used side. So making sure people understand why the price is what it is, that vehicle is priced the way it is because it's a one owner or has low mileage, or whatever it may be. So I found that a lot of my clients who were reluctant to try superlatives initially saw it as a way to bolster that messaging during the situation, and now they love it for all the reasons Kate mentioned, like for their BDC, for word tracks, for helping the used car manager save time and to do other things.
Awesome. Last question for you, Aaron. What's your dog's name, and what kind of dog is it?
I've got 2. The one that was trying to sit on my feet is our Airedale, and her name is Barkley. And then we have a little Chihuahua Schnauzer mix named Taco.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad they could participate today as well. So that was great. And so, we'll wrap it up here. We're just a couple of minutes over. Appreciate everybody kind of sticking with us. And Kate, Aaron, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for participating with us today. Yeah, absolutely. So, if you guys are interested, anybody listening is interested in signing up with Snap and Superlatives, we promise that you won't regret it. We've got 2 fans that will definitely vet that for us as well on the line here today. Some kind of incentives for anybody that was on today or gets to listen to the video later, but please just email sales@tradepending.com for a quote. I frankly did a very watered down 10-minute down and dirty demo of both of these products, and there's actually a lot more to them. So if you want to do a deeper dive, just email us and we're happy to set you up with an appointment for that. So once again, thank you guys so much. Thanks everybody for coming and listening today, and please email me if you need anything. And we look forward to talking to you.